Copyright disclaimer. Under Title 17 U.S.C. Section 107, allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, and research. Fair use is permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing nonprofit, educational, or personal use, tips the balance in favor of fair use. Okay, you guys. This is from the National District Attorneys Association. It's dated, or last updated, February 2012. I don't know if there's been changes, but my goal was just to get the gist of what the official meanings, definitions of child abuse and or neglect are. So we have some type of measurement as to what real child abuse is and how parents or guardians can have their parental rights taken away from them when there's child abuse or neglect. So hold on here. So this is just basically the federal statutes. No, wait, how do I explain this? I'm going to read what it says. I don't know how to explain it. So the compilation includes all statutes that allow for the termination of parental rights due to neglect. Imagine that, you guys. Also included are definitions of neglect which apply to the relevant title, article, or chapter of code. In addition to definitions are any religious or poverty-based exemptions. Oh, there's another exemption that may apply. Oh, listen to that. This compilation is up to date as of February 2012, but we recommend checking case law and current statutes for any possible modifications. Imagine that, you guys. There's actually statutes that are protecting children. I found it real creepy that they say religious or poverty-based exemptions. Well, they mention it. I'm not really sure what exactly that is. Does that mean if you're in a religion, you can abuse the crap out of the children? Oh, they say that may apply. I just don't have the energy to get irritated anymore today. I just don't. So I'm going to read page 41 from my tablet because this print is too small. Okay, so what I'm reading here are the California codes. I'm going to go back one page and cover all of it. California. California Family Code 7802-2012. Proceeding for declaration of freedom from parental custody and control. A proceeding may be brought under this part for the purpose of having a minor child declared free from the custody and control of either or both parents. California Family Code 7803-2012. Effect of declaration of freedom. A declaration of freedom from parental custody and control pursuant to this part terminates all parental rights and responsibilities with regard to the child. Family Code, California Family Code 7823. 2012. So this actually exists, you guys. Isn't that crazy? Neglected or cruelly treated children, like the ones in Scientology. Right to action. A proceeding under this part may be brought where all of the following requirements are satisfied. 1. The child has been neglected or cruelly treated by either or both parents. That includes guardians as well. 2. The child has been a dependent child of the juvenile court under any subdivision of Section 300 of the Welfare and Institutions Code, and the parent or parents have been deprived of the child's custody for 1 year before the filing of a petition pursuant to this part. I would wonder what happens to refugee children. Do they count too, California? B. Physical custody by the parent or parents for insubstantial periods of time does not interrupt the running of the 1 year period. California Family Code 7829-2012. Child found to be dependent child and reunification services not to be provided. Right to action. A. Proceeding under this part may be brought where both of the following requirements are satisfied. A. The child has been found to be a dependent child of the juvenile court. You guys know what happens there, right? B. The juvenile court has determined, pursuant to paragraph 3, 4, or 5 of subdivision B of section 361.5 of the Welfare and Institutions Code, that reunification services shall not be provided to the child's parent or guardian. Oh boy, hold on. California Welfare and Institute Code 300, 2012. Children subject to jurisdiction, legislative intent, and declarations. Guardian defined. This is important. Any child who comes within any of the following descriptions is within the jurisdiction of the juvenile court, which may adjudge that person to be a dependent child of the court. A. Very important. The child has suffered, or there is a substantial risk that the child will suffer. Does that mean when they get beaten to a pulp? Like the kids in Scientology? Will suffer serious physical harm inflicted non-accidentally, Wally Hanks, upon the child by the child's parent or guardian. Guardian. For the purposes of this subdivision, a court may find there is a substantial risk of serious future injury, based on the manner which a less serious injury was inflicted. Sergio Blensky. A history of repeated inflictions of injuries on the child or child siblings, or a combination of these and other actions by the parent or guardian, which indicates the child is at risk of serious physical harm. For purposes of this subdivision, serious physical harm does not include reasonable and age-appropriate spanking to the buttocks where there is no evidence of serious physical injury. What about when they make the child turn their pants and their underpants down? Does that count too? B. The child has suffered, or there is a substantial risk that the child will suffer serious physical harm or illness as a result of the failure or inability of his or her parent or guardian to adequately supervise or protect the child. Huh. Like when they get locked up in rooms for weeks on end in Scientology. Or the willful or negligent failure of the child's parent or guardian to adequately supervise or protect the child from the conduct of the custodian with whom the child has been left. Oh, that's all the Scientology children, as we speak right now, in real time. To adequately supervise or protect the child, adequately supervise or protect the child, or the willful, or negligent failure of the child's parent or guardian to adequately, by the willful or negligent failure of the parent or guardian to provide the child with adequate food, Scientology, clothing, Scientology, shelter, Scientology, or medical treatment, Scientology, or by the inability of the parent or guardian to provide regular care for the child due to the parent's or guardian's mental illness, developmental disability, or substance abuse, or mind control maybe? There's no excuses. No child shall be found to be a person described by the subdivision solely due to the lack of an emergency shelter for the family. Whenever it is alleged that a child comes within the jurisdiction of the court on the basis of the parent's or guardian's willful failure to provide adequate medical treatment or specific decision to provide spiritual treatment through prayer, the court shall give deference to the parent's or guardian's medical treatment, non-treatment, or spiritual treatment. Through prayer alone, you guys know it's a sacrifice, right? In accordance with the tenets and practices of a recognized church or religious denomination, by an accredited practitioner thereof, and shall not assume jurisdiction unless necessary, to protect the child from suffering serious physical harm or illness. Isn't that wild? In making its determination, the court shall consider 1. The nature of the treatment proposed by the parent or guardian. 2. The risks to the child posed by the course of treatment or non-treatment proposed by the parent or guardian. 3. The risk, if any, of the course of treatment being proposed by the petitioning agency. And 4. The likely success of the courses of treatment or non-treatment proposed by the parent or guardian and agency. The child shall continue to be a dependent child pursuant to this subdivision only so long as necessary to protect the child from risk of suffering serious physical harm or illness. LAPD, did you hear that? C. The child is suffering serious emotional damage or is at substantial risk of suffering serious emotional damage. Evidenced, and we know it's happening right now. That's why they got them all locked up and unable to come out and talk with social workers, unable to talk with doctors, unable to talk with other people or children. Evidenced by severe anxiety, depression. Does that count when 10-year-olds are trying to commit suicide in Scientology? We just want to know. Is that depressed enough for you, LAPD or FBI or anyone else, that the 10-year-olds are trying to take themselves out? Withdrawal or untoward aggressive behavior toward self or others as a result of the conduct of the parent or guardian, or who has no parent or guardian capable of providing appropriate care. Isn't this wild, you guys? No child shall be found to be a person described by this subdivision if the willful failure of the parent or guardian to provide adequate mental health treatment is based on a sincerely held religious belief. What about fake religions? And if a less intrusive judicial intervention is available. So what that tells me is they'll just let the kids die. That's what it tells me when I'm reading this. It's my opinion. D, the child has been sexually abused. Oh, there's plenty of proof of that in Scientology. They're doing it right now. In fact, they're really into it. Like they just they get into it. They get off on it. D, the child has been sexually abused or there is a substantial risk that the child will be sexually abused. Well, given all the precedents that we've seen in Scientology, most of these children are guaranteed to be sexually abused. They keep telling these children that they are adults in small bodies. As defined in section 11165.1 of the Penal Code, by his or her parent or guardian or a member of his or her household. Or the parent or guardian has failed to adequately protect the child from sexual abuse when the parent or guardian knew or reasonably should have known that the child was in danger of sexual abuse. Well, that covers all these Scientology parents that are just handing their children over. No more excuses. There are no more excuses left. Zero. Zilch. Nada. E, the child is under the age of 5 years and has suffered severe physical abuse by a parent or by any person known by the parent. If the parent knew or reasonably should have known that the person was physically abusing the child, for the purposes of this subdivision, severe physical abuse means any of the following, any single act of abuse which causes physical trauma of sufficient severity that if left untreated would cause permanent physical disfigurement. Sir Jablonski, permanent physical disability. How many children have come out with physical disabilities in Scientology? Or death. Or death. Rest in peace to the Moxon girl. Any single act of sexual abuse which causes significant bleeding, deep bruising, or significant external or internal swelling. How about that, you guys? There's actually evidence. There's actual physical evidence when children have been sexually abused. Isn't that amazing? Significant external or internal swelling, or more than one act of physical abuse, each of which causes bleeding, deep bruising, significant external or internal swelling, bone fracture, or unconsciousness, or the willful prolonged failure to provide adequate food. It's going on right now. A child may not be removed from the physical custody of his or her parent or guardian on the basis of a finding of severe physical abuse unless the social worker has made an allegation of severe physical abuse pursuant to Section 332. What about when she's threatened and intimidated? Wonder what the mafia, I do wonder what the mafia, the Italian mafia, would think about Scientology abusing all its children like this. One does wonder. F, the child's parent or guardian caused the death of another child through abuse or neglect. G, the child has been left without any provision for support. Isn't that what Reese Cabell talked about when she was a child? Physical custody of the child has been voluntarily, listen to that, that's all Scientology children, surrendered pursuant to Section 1255.7 of the Health and Safety Code, and the child has not been reclaimed. within the 14-day period specified in subdivision E of that section, the child's parent has been incarcerated, well, there's getting ready to be a bunch incarcerated, or institutionalized and cannot arrange for the care of the child, or a relative or other adult custodian with whom the child resides or has been left is unwilling or unable to provide care or support for the child. That would count for anybody. The whereabouts of the parent are unknown, and reasonable efforts to locate the parent have been unsuccessful. Well, over there in Scientology, it's pretty easy to find the parents. The child has been subjected to an act or acts of cruelty by the parent or guardian. LAPD, how about that? Isn't that wild? Or a member of his or her household. Or the parent or guardian has failed to adequately protect the child from an act or acts of cruelty when the parent or guardian knew or reasonably should have known that the child was in danger of being subjected to an act or an acts of cruelty. Mind you, how many of these Scientology parents are getting their food served to them by children in the kitchen staff? J. The child's sibling has been abused or neglected as defined in subdivision A, B, D, E, or I, and there is a substantial risk that the child will be abused or neglected as defined in those subdivisions. The court shall consider the circumstances surrounding the abuse or neglect of the sibling, the age and gender of each child, the nature of the abuse or neglect of the sibling, the mental condition of the parent or guardian. So basically, parents or guardians that are allowing their children to be abused or they're abusing them, they will be subjected to scrutiny of their mental capacities. The mental condition of the parent or guardian and any other factors the court considers probative in determining whether there is a substantial risk to the child. Child Protective Services, are you listening? It is the intent of the legislature that nothing in this section disrupt the family unnecessarily. Well, when everybody has been disrupted, what do you do then? Or intrude inappropriately into family life. There's no real family life in Scientology. Maybe Publix might have some family life, but the staff members and the Sea Org, nope. Children all gathered up in a bunch, put in these schools, away from their parents. The court shall consider the circumstances surrounding the abuse or neglect of the sibling, the age and gender of each child, the nature of the abuse or neglect of the sibling. Oh, I already read that. The mental condition of the parent or guardian, and any other factors the court considers probative in determining whether there is substantial risk to the child. It is the intent of the legislature that nothing in this section disrupt the family unnecessarily or intrude inappropriately into family life, prohibit the use of reasonable methods of parental discipline, or prescribe a particular method of parenting, like auditing, or giving children, putting them in ethics, or making them sit at a table for hours on end and not moving. Further, nothing in this section is intended to limit the offering of voluntary services to those families in need of assistance, but who do not come within the descriptions of this section. To the extent that savings accrue to the state from child welfare services, funding obtained as a result of the enactment of the Act, the enacted this section, those savings shall be used to promote services which support family maintenance and family reunification plans. Imagine that, you guys. such as emergency in-home caretakers and persons teaching and demonstrating homemaking skills. The legislature further declares that a physical disability, such as blindness or deafness, is no bar to the raising of happy and well-adjusted children, and that a court's determination pursuant to this section shall center upon whether a parent's disability prevents him or her from exercising care and control. The legislature further declares that a child whose parent has been adjudged a dependent child of the court, pursuant to this section, shall not be considered to be at risk of abuse or neglect solely because of the age, dependent status, or foster care status of the parent. Okay, and then they talk about medical care and treatment by spiritual means. Basically, everybody, these religions have a right to let the children die, basically. Just look it up. That's my opinion. And then they go into a lot more here. Let's see. I'm not going to read the whole thing. It's just too long. But that's it for now, you guys. I'll leave a link in the description box. Like and subscribe if you choose. Otherwise, have an amazing day or night, wherever you are. Peace.